Hello,
Hello,
Maria.
how do Louise?
Hello, everybody.
How do everybody?
Um, Today we're going to be talking about,
Retirement.
say that again,
Oh, retirement.
retirement. It kind of went, retirement.
Retirement. Yeah, we thought we'd do a week on retirement, didn't we? Because it's, it's massive. It's a
The thing.
massive life event for people. So yeah, we're going to chat about it.
Yes.
Yes.
Get out what you want to say and I'll interject.
Oh, okay. So the reason we're talking about retirement, as I said, it's a massive life event. For anybody who's retiring, and it can have such an impact on people's mental health, physical health, their sense of self, their sense of purpose, like absolutely everything. That's why we need to talk about it.
Totally get that. But you're making it sound like everybody dreads it, but not everybody dreads it, surely.
No, not everybody dreads it. I mean, I'm sat here thinking, oh, by gum, I can't wait to retire.
Hmm.
Um, but I imagine the reality, if I think about it, is very different. So if we think about, how it could actually be, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I'll just be able to lay in bed all day and I won't have to answer to anybody and I won't have to see anybody and I'll just be able to do what I want and I'll be able to do that like cake decorating course that I've always wanted to do. I'll be able to go to the gym during the day or all the swimming courses that are during the day that I can't get to and I'll be able to travel and I'll be able to do all these things. And the reality is often very different for people. So, for example, all the things that you might think you want to do, either one, you can't actually afford it anymore.
Hmm.
So, I might not be able to travel the world. I mean, I can't now, to be fair. So why would I be able to when I'm retired? So I can't actually afford, might not be able to afford to do all those things like go and visit people, go and visit the grandchildren, go and do shopping, go and do all these courses. So financially, it's difficult, for some people as they retire and get older, it is the difference between food or fuel. So although we often think, oh, it's going to be great and I'm going to be able to do all these things, one, financially, you might not be able to do it.
Hmm.
Two, for health reasons, you might not be able to do it. Physical health, your mental health can within 10 years of retirement, especially with men, which we need to talk about,
Hmm.
can really dramatically drop and depression can be really high. And sadly, suicide rates of I know, I'm sorry, I
This
have
is such a sad conversation. I did not come
I know
into this thinking we were going to be like, it's so bad. I hope we're going to like say some
we
positive.
are
Okay, go on.
totally,
Carry
but
on then.
but
Suicide
we
rates, go on.
yes. So suicide rates of retirement age people, especially amongst men,
Mm,
are very high.
mm,
And I mean, for example, you know me in stats, I'm not great, but 2022, the highest rate of suicides were men over the age of 90, which is just the saddest thing that you could ever imagine. And I've supported quite a lot of people in my work, older people who have tried to take their own life just because of, a loss of purpose, illness, isolation. So it's serious. And this is why we're talking about it.
okay.
But to make you feel better,
Mm.
since the 80s, when I was alive, were you alive in the
I was
80s?
alive in the 80s.
um, the rates of suicide for older people are decreasing.
Okay.
So that's a positive, people. But it is super serious.
What do you think has improved since then? Just awareness or things that are available to older people?
I think it's a combination. So I think one is that prior to, again, I don't know the dates, but at the age of, like, for men, for example, at 60 or 65, you had to retire whether you liked it or not.
Mm.
So a lot of people were kind of forced to retire when they weren't ready or didn't want to. Their jobs could have been their life, their purpose, their kind of everything. Um, Whereas nowadays, you don't actually, if you're fit and able, well to do your job, you don't have to retire.
Mm.
Also, people are, aging better, hopefully, with awareness. I think there is more support out there. We're part of trying to, reduce and hopefully get rid of one day age discrimination.
Mm.
We're trying to see that actually having older people in your organization just brings so much benefit to the organization because of all that experience, that life experience, that knowledge about the company, etc. So, I think social media as well possibly is good for that as well. Other people might see people similar to their age getting out, doing things, still, maybe going to getting a little part-time job or something. So I think there is more support out there. We're talking a bit more about mental health as well and how we feel, and we are age discrimination is illegal now. So
Mm. As it should be.
absolutely, yeah.
So if we're supporting our older people and or maybe they're not quite ready for retirement, but retirement is looming, like what sort of things can we do to prepare or help them prepare or make life easier if they're already struggling?
Yeah, I think because when my mum was going to be retiring, we thought she's never going to cope, never, ever, ever. Um, and she obviously misses her,
Mm.
passion in life, her career. Um, but I think what we can do if people are starting to get to that position of maybe looking at retirement, there are sort of like pension forecasts you can look at.
Mhm.
So you can look at maybe actually, can I afford to retire yet? How is my retirement going to be financially? Um, do I maybe want to retire fully or would I like to go part time? Would I like to change jobs completely? If you're in a kind of a high energy, very demanding job, you might be ready to give that up, but maybe you'd like to do something else that's a little bit less stressful.
Mm.
So there are, it's easier to change jobs now as you get older than it used to be. You used to be seen as you're not worthy anymore, you're kind of over the hill, you passed it. What can you give to an organization? But lots of places. I mean, you look at places abroad, like China, Japan, they have specific jobs for older people because they
Mm.
respect their older people, as we should. And you're kind of expected to work, just keep working because it's so good for you physically and mentally.
Mm.
So I think it's looking at how you might feel when you retire, kind of things you might want to do, might not want to do. Sometimes for people, putting structure in place is very important. So you can maybe think about your kind of structure. Because I know if I sort of retired, I wouldn't get out of bed for weeks because you know what I'm like. I love my bed, so, which isn't good for you mentally or physically. So
No.
I think it is about looking at what's available maybe in your area and see
Are
how
there
you
any
feel about it.
signs to look out for? So if you're, say, your parents or your neighbors or just friends that have retired, and they might not be coping so well, like are there any signs for us to look out for or anything that might make us think, oh, should check it?
Yeah, I would say, look at somebody's mood because that's got to be the biggest sign.
Mm.
Somebody's quite low in mood. Um, Maybe they've got, lacking motivation. There's nothing for them to look forward to. Often people might say, sort of comments like, oh, I'm useless, or I've got nothing to give anymore, or I've got no purpose, I've got nothing to get out of bed for, lots of things, sort of negative comments about sort of not being needed anymore,
Mm.
because that's massive for some people. And I think it would be for me, feeling that you don't have a purpose and you don't have status anymore. At one point you could have been, the head of the West Yorkshire police. You could have been at the highest of your game,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden you've nothing, you're invisible, possibly, or feel invisible. And again, somebody could have been, sat on a checkout,
Well,
chatting to people every day and just miss that social interaction. So
yeah.
I would say mood is probably the biggest thing to look at if somebody's changed.
Yeah, I think um, from my parents, talking about personal experience, I think my dad, um, once he retired, he sat in a chair and his world got smaller and smaller and smaller, and his mobility got worse and worse and worse. And now it's almost his mobility at the point of not being able to reverse, and he's just sort of starting to think, oh, I want to live my life. And I think it almost, I mean, it hasn't gone too far because there's nothing is too far, but he's a lot more timid and sort of enclosed now.
Hmm.
But then on the other side, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law have loved retirement. They keep themselves busy with us, with their
Mhm.
grandchildren, with house renovations. Well, DIY, I should say. They go on holidays, they play sport, and they're really loving it. So it can be both things, can't it? Just depending on how you tackle it, and like you said, finances and how you feel about it.
I think, yeah, I mean, there are, hundreds and thousands of millions of people out there enjoying their retirement,
Mm.
and that's great. And that's what we want to achieve. We don't need to speak to those people
No.
because, they're out there, they're happy, they're having fun. We're trying to reach the people who are struggling, and just to be aware, for people our age and younger, to be aware that it can literally flick a switch and take somebody's life, retirement. So, we need to be thinking about that. But yeah, I mean, it can be absolutely amazing. But like you said, with your father-in-law, they're enjoying it.
Mm.
They've got, they've got you.
Mm.
They have a grandchild. They're out there. For some people, they don't have that. They don't potentially have the wellness. Like your
Mm.
dad doesn't, not able to get out and do those things. They might not have anybody to do it with. They might not have children, grandchildren. Their circle just might be so small. They don't have those opportunities. I mean, people say that grandchildren keep them so active and so
Mm.
young because you kind of have to be. You have to be able to run about after them. And if you look nowadays, there's so many grandparents looking after their grandchildren, picking them up from school, dropping them off at school, looking after in the school holidays, having
Well,
sleepovers.
my in-laws helped me a great amount with that, and I will be forever grateful. And I'm sure there's another episode in that about the labour that grandparents,
Absolutely. Yeah. We can
free
certainly.
labour that
Yeah.
grandparents
Yeah,
perform.
absolutely.
But then you have the flip side of my parents who were equally retired and equally had as much time, but didn't see that as an opportunity for them to sort of stay active and keep interested and be out in the world. They wasn't really their cup of tea. So I guess it's not for everyone, is it? Just because you have
Absolutely
grandchildren
not.
doesn't mean you want to spend time
No, of
with them.
course not. I mean, some people don't. You know, I sometimes don't leave the house, and I think I'd have to, as I get older, I will probably want to do that less, but that
Mm.
can have an impact on your mental health. So
Mm.
it's all about how you feel. And, we always say this about like with loneliness and isolation, there's, very different. It's loneliness is very subjective. So, you could be going out five, six, or an older person could be going out 5, 6 times a day, sorry, not a day, a week, going to clubs, going to groups, doing all these things, still feeling isolated and lonely.
Mm.
And then you've got somebody who might not even go out once a week or just have a phone call, and they're absolutely fine. They're
Yeah.
happy. So it is just very subjective, and we're all so different, and we will all retire very differently.
Mm.
But I think it's what we want to bring is awareness of how challenging it can be for some people,
Mm.
catastrophically challenging. Sorry, I don't want to be too sad, but I just want to get the point out there of
Yeah.
how important it is and how people just feel like nobody's, once they've retired. That, like I say, they could have had so much responsibility and purpose, and then they've nothing to get out of bed for. They've got nothing.
So it's all very well that we recognise that and we understand that, but what do we do? Like, what's on offer? Could they volunteer? How do we make them feel useful, or how do we help them to find their purpose again? What I mean, I know we talked last week about pets, and that gives people a purpose,
Yeah.
um, and friendship also, I suppose, from a few weeks ago ties in with that. But is there
Mm.
anything else that can sort of give people that purpose if they're not working?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you mentioned volunteering,
Mm.
and that is the second best thing that you can do that makes you feel good.
Like
The
a game
second,
of family fortunes.
yeah.
Our survey said. So
Yeah.
what's the top
What
answer?
do you think it is, Louise?
A pet.
No,
Oh,
it's not. It's dancing.
shush.
It's dancing. So dancing makes people the happiest, and I can understand that. Taking dance classes and being very bad. You were a dancer growing up, but volunteering was, yeah, voted the second most thing to make people happy. So yeah, so volunteering is a really good way, to give people a purpose back and help them to feel useful again, that they're contributing to society, to their local community. And we can support by, having a chat with somebody about their passions. What is it you might like to do? So for example, with my mum, she currently volunteers in a local shop, charity shop. She enjoys that.
The Age UK one.
It is, yeah, the Age UK one, yeah. She's also volunteered for the Samaritans, because she's, mental health background and obviously misses what she does.
Mm.
But there's so many different volunteer opportunities in the local, everybody's local community, and people are desperate for volunteers.
Mm.
And it's just finding what's right for you, really. So, have a chat with your person if it's something they might like to do, and support them to do that. Because depending on which organization you go to, they might, it might be a bit of a rigmarole with some places. Some it's really easy, but they might need help filling out a form, or, those kind of things, references. So yeah, just supporting, have you thought about volunteering, or, find out what people enjoy.
And there really is such a range of volunteering. I know our local park, they have volunteers that help look after the trees in the park. And
Mm.
then I know that we have, is it SAFA? It's
Yeah,
Armed
stuff
Forces
is
Charity. They have
amazing.
people that will go and sort of befriend ex-armed forces people and offer support to them. Like
Yeah.
there's just so much, isn't there?
Yeah, you think about what you're interested in, and they will be somewhere like the library. I mean, for example, in lots of places, the library will go and visit older people in their home and read to them and, befriend them. So, yeah, it could be that you're interested in books or pets. Like I say, we were talking about pets last week. You can go to shelters and volunteer there. There are stables that you can go and help muck out, if you're fit enough and you
Mm.
fancy a bit of poop all over the place. There, anything gardening, there's lots of gardening projects. So yeah, find, what people have been interested in their life, and maybe try and help them get back into that. Purpose is so important for us all.
Yeah, I agree. That's a lovely idea.
Yeah. I don't volunteer currently. Do you volunteer currently?
I do. I help with hobs.
Dib dab dob, or whatever it is. What is it?
We'll do
No,
our
none of those.
But I know that our Kayla, she's retired, but
Mm,
she finds great joy in running that she looks after the whole hall. She runs a I don't say junk sale, but I don't mean that. I mean a jumble sale. She
mm,
does that every month. She runs the Cubs group twice a week. And I think scouting, if you're that way inclined, is something that all ages can get involved with. So
yeah.
it's a really lovely place to volunteer, and I would encourage people to consider it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, yeah, there's so much you can do. like I say, you've got to find what you're interested in, and there'll be something, where you can volunteer. So yeah, volunteering is a great idea. The other things that you can maybe look at is, joining groups. There might be local walking groups, the local U3As, women institutes, men in sheds. There is sadly a lot less for men, and it is men who struggle more with retirement.
That's
Um,
changing though, isn't it? There is a lot, that shed network has expanded massively
yeah,
even since we first found out about it.
yeah. I mean, it is amazing. I mean, the good work that has come out of those sheds, because like classic men don't want to go to the doctors, malarkey. Not malarkey. I don't know why I said malarkey, but you know what I mean.
I do.
Malarkey, yeah. So, there's like one example of somebody who was at the sheds, and one of the shedders, as they call them, um, was a retired doctor, and they just end up getting talking, these two people, and he convinced this gentleman to go to the doctor, and it turns out he had prostate cancer. So, just from being in that shed, he opened up to somebody who he wouldn't usually open up to, and it probably saved his life. So there are things that are getting a bit better for men, luckily, but I think it is still harder for
Mm.
men just to go out and go to one of these chatty groups full of women and things like that.
100%. That is my dad, case in point, and his life sort of flows down into such a tight circle. But
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't pull him out of it, and I have a lot of knowledge, and I have you, who has even more knowledge, and I couldn't change how
Mm.
he interacted with the world, and yeah. So what if if people like us who are experts,
Mm.
experts.
Experts, check us out.
But people who know a bit like better, like can't make a
Yeah,
difference. It's so hard to watch someone you love just shrink smaller, smaller,
I mean, it really is. It's so sad.
smaller.
I mean, all you can do really is encourage and support
Mm,
and offer many suggestions. So, for example, if somebody won't go out because they're too embarrassed to go to a group, I know we have spoken about this
mm,
before, but there are other options apart from going out and joining a group.
mm,
If we can get people involved in social media, online things, there are, groups that you can join online.
mm,
You can even join sort of anonymously. You don't have to have cameras up, on. You could maybe do it with somebody. So there are other options, maybe like we've spoke about that armchair travel and things like that where you don't want to get out, perhaps you're not maybe somebody who wants to join groups, but you could maybe still find an interest, something to do, a purpose, and it could be like, oh, this week I'm going to find out about Italy, or you
mm,
know but it is encouraging people to do it, because sometimes if we get too low, we just don't have the motivation, and that's where we need support from people around us to try and do that. And obviously I know you're doing that, but at the end of the day, if somebody isn't doing it, even though you've given them as much support as
mm.
you can, there is sadly very little you can do about that. You can just maybe broach it every now and again and come up with a new idea. um
I think
but
it's hard not to get frustrated because, especially if you feel like you're doing all the right things, and also I think, as I say, it's just really hard to watch someone go from a person who is out in the world to not being able to leave their armchair, and
mm,
to remember that it is their choice, as much as we want to sort of say, no, you should do this, you should do
yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my role, I've often had sons, daughters, nieces, nephews coming to me and saying, my mother just sits there every day and she won't go out. It's like, well, to be fair, she's earned that. She's in her 70s, 80s, 90s, 100. Let them be. If you've offered everything that you possibly can and offered that support and encouraged them, because like we've said before, it's very hard. I wouldn't be good at it going out to a group. I'm not great at those things. Why would we be when we're older if we're potentially not good at it when we're younger, and our confidence, it can decrease as we get older. I think as long as it's not coming from somebody's not doing it because of a mental health issue,
Mm,
for example, they're too anxious or maybe they're low in mood,
mm,
if we think that might be the case, then we can encourage maybe a doctor's appointment.
mm.
Um, but if all that's been checked and medications have been checked and things like that, leave people alone. Because if somebody tried to get me out when I was like 80, I can't be got out at the best of times, you know?
Can you just recap quickly on the sort of major effects of retirement, and then maybe give us something positive to finish on?
I'll try, yeah. So I suppose, um, what we need to think about, keep an eye on your person, you know, your older person, if they are coming up to retirement or they have retired. They might change generally because it's might be a great thing for people. Or they, you know, they could just be a bit sad for a while because they are missing, you know, that element of what used to be. But I would say, you know, if after several months or something, people are feeling like, you know, quite low, they're noticing a big change in their relative or friend, then maybe we need to have a chat. So yeah, things to look out for: change, changing routines, maybe not wanting to go out, maybe not engaging, feeling a bit useless, not feeling like they've got a purpose anymore, no responsibilities. You know, they're not themselves anymore. And just remember that, you know, it has such an impact on a lot of people. So just keep an eye on your person when they retire or when they're about to retire.
And what's like a top tip, a positive thing that we can do to help?
So it comes down to the same thing with everything that we talk about. It's communication, communication. So see people as people. Don't just see somebody as a retired person that no longer has a sense of self, a sense of purpose, a sense of need, a sense of belonging. We don't change. Nothing changes like that as we get older. So just remember that that person has lived a life just like we're living. So please remember that, everybody, that they're still people. Just because they've retired and maybe don't have a job anymore doesn't mean they're any less at all. So, yeah, keep communicating, keep talking to your people, maybe encourage them to go out with you. Maybe make some suggestions. You could leave some leaflets around the house, you know, volunteering or local groups or things like that. Encourage and support people to feel like they have a purpose and a place in this world and not invisible.
Nice. Okay, well, check us all out on social media throughout the week and share, follow, like, subscribe. I don't know which one, but do all of them if you
Do
can.
them all. Yeah.
And we'll sign off. Aged
Yeah.
quickly.
Signing off. Over and out.
Bye.
Ciao, Bella.